Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. Last year, one of my biggest goals for the year, which we did accomplish, was to expand my team and to bring everybody on as W 2 employees and to fill the team with really high caliber people who could really step up to the plate and serve in that employee role. And I remember a couple of years ago when I had a team that was basically stitched together with contractors, which again, there's no wrong way to do this. It was perfectly what we needed at the time. But I remember looking back on that and realizing how much I had hesitations over hiring employees because of the level of commitment involved. I was a little bit scared at the expense of an employee, number one, even though it's not that much more, which I'll get into, and the overall commitment of the relationship. So, you know, when it comes to contractors and employees, I really want to equip you with what you need to know to hire the right type for your type of business based on what stage you're in, what industry you're in, and just in general, what you need right now. So, if your plan is to hire people in 2025, take this with you, equip yourself with this new knowledge, and go into it intentionally knowing who you're going to hire. So, first things first, let's talk about the difference between these two things, employees versus contractors. I'm going to talk about it from a relationship level, from like a fundamental, just strategic level when you want these people in your team, but also from a tax standpoint, they're treated very differently. So, it's important to know the implications to your business for hiring these people. And the first thing I want to sort of myth bust on you is that employees and contractors, you don't get to choose how you classify them. They are inherently an employee or contractor based on the relationship you have, the behaviors you and they exhibit, and the level of control you have over them. So, this is your little, I'm going to give a 2-minute like tax lesson on this. It's really important to understand this. A contractor is fundamentally another business owner or another business or a freelancer, somebody that you hire in from on a project basis or on a temporary basis with a very fixed scope who brings their own tools with them and has maybe their own laptop, their own company, their own resources, their own team, and you bring them in to perform a certain function. A good example of this is exactly what we do. It's hiring a CFO, it's hiring an accountant, it's hiring a marketing agency, it's hiring a graphic designer, hiring a VA, right? So these are the people who fulfill a certain function in your business. Now you might be thinking, okay, Shan, but like an employee does that too. Hold on. One big aspect of a contractor is that they have other clients. They have other people they serve. You represent a fraction of their time, not their whole job. So it's a really important distinction because a lot of people get in trouble for this. They come on as contractors, but in reality, the person who's working for you who's a contractor is spending 35 plus hours a week on your accounts. And in reality, it's like, are you really giving them the space and freedom and wiggle room to hire more or to bring on more clients? And the answer is probably not. So you have to be really assess how much control you have over them and how much influence you have on their business. So that being said, you want to make sure that you're treated properly from your client standpoint, but also that you are treating your contractors and employees fairly and properly classifying them. Now, here's the other wrench in this. Every state has different, we'll say, levels of strictness when it comes to classifying these things. So it's really important that you understand your specific state's requirements. Okay. Now we're getting into the HR stuff, but just understand that that is a difference there. And then on the subject of HR, the number one thing here when choosing between an employee or contractor is that it has to make sense for you. It has to make sense for the function, for what they provide, for what they get done for you. Do not try to circumvent. and try to get strategic by calling them something because it's tax advantaged or whatever. It should never be the primary reason. Broadly, I think if you listen to the show, you've heard me say this a dozen times. Never make tax savings the primary reason for anything. It should be a side effect. It should be a positive side effect of doing things you were going to do anyway, or doing more of something you were going to do anyway. So here's the thing with employees and contractors, they're different in this regard. And this is why you need to be really intentional about who you're hiring. Here's how I would here's how I would connect employees and contractors. And this is going to sound like a really funny example, but hear me out. Contractors are like the friends with benefits slash the one night stand, the hookup. Employees are like the wifey material, go on a weekend, meet their parents, go to Thanksgiving type people. And what I'm talking about is commitment. I'm talking about just that level of commitment, but also the level of prioritization of certain aspects of that relationship. So with a contractor, it is very task driven. It is very much like, hey, Shan, I'm going to hire you to be my CFO. You're going to fulfill that function and basically, you know, go home after or go spend time with your other clients. And there's no level of exclusivity or commitment, or I don't expect you to work here full time. I don't expect you to use my tools. I expect you to use yours. Like I have my own laptop, I have my own QuickBooks access, I have my own team, I have my own, podcast equipment, all this stuff, right? I don't expect to be given any of that by my clients. That would be kind of silly when you think about it. But conversely, with an employee, that is expected. It is expected. So with a contractor, the other thing is that it's easy to grow out of this relationship and it's easy to exit this relationship. And this is why I think a lot of people stick with contractor type relationships because, in a way, it feels low risk and it feels low commitment because you know that you're just one 30-day notice or 60-day notice or whatever it is, or even, zero notice. You're one email away from making the expense go away, from, you know, just moving on from the relationship and being able to untangle that. So basically, it's kind of this blocking of, if I don't let them in too deeply, I can't get my heart broken, or I can't, you know, if I don't connect with them, if I don't form a relationship and we don't go deeper than the task level, then I can just exit this whenever I want to. And I know that is far deeper than what this actually is in business, but just hear me out with kind of the mentality you're going into this relationship with. Because I did this too. I hired a bunch of contractors from a functional standpoint. And by the way, the advantage of hiring contractors is also that they have specialties, right? So they are bringing with them all of the experience from other clients. They're bringing with them all of their expertise, their team, you're getting a lot more than your money's worth in most cases when you're hiring someone who's bringing in a team. So there are a ton of advantages to that. And I'm not downplaying the importance of hiring contractors for what they serve. Hey there, are you on LinkedIn? I love connecting with listeners and other professionals and business owners on that platform. I gotta say, I'm really enjoying it. So if we're not already connected, make sure you send me a connection request after this episode. When it comes to the fulfillment of the thing in your business, this is especially where I want you to consider this, the fulfillment of the thing. So, when I'm talking about a bakery, I'm talking about the baker. When I'm talking about an accounting firm, I'm talking about the accountants. I'm talking about the people, legal firm, the lawyers, not the, graphic designer or the VA or the EA. They could be employees by all means. But I think the first person, if you're going to dabble in this employee space, the first person you should probably think about transitioning is the person who's closely aligned with fulfilling on your offer. And in my case, that was the bookkeepers that I hired. I decided to go from contracted bookkeepers to bringing someone in full time, like hard stop, full time salary. Like, you work on my clients. Only you do things my way. Best decision ever. So I'm coming off of those decisions and sharing this with you. In hindsight, looking back, I was coming from a place of fear with hiring all these different contractors because I knew that if I didn't commit to one single person, or I didn't commit to, a full giving someone a full-time job, I was relieving myself of the pressure as well. Because there's a ton of pressure with being responsible for filling someone's 40-hour work week. I mean, that's crazy, right? And now that I have 7 employees under my belt, I'm like, "Oh my god." these people are relying on me for their income. Like, this is wild. And I think I mean, you don't think about that all the time, but I do from time to time. And it does feel a little overwhelming, but it's also very exciting because to give them this opportunity is really cool. One of the most proud things I've done as an entrepreneur is create jobs. That's crazy. I created 7 jobs, like, out of thin air. It feels really cool. So, when you're considering contractors and employees, I want you to think of this too. The employee, when you're evaluating this person, a contractor is more about the technical aptitude. It's more about can they get the job done and done right? And it's very task oriented. With an employee, you have to be more mindful about values alignment. It has to be mission based. Like, they have to have a vision that fits in your vision. They have to come along for the ride and they're committing to you. They're quitting a job. They might be quitting a higher salary to come work for you. And while that can be overwhelming, thinking, oh my God, what am I giving them that's worth that? Don't worry about that. Think about the commitment that they are extending. Like, they're really saying, hey, I'm in this with you and I want the same thing as you. And you have to come to the table and also commit to them in the form of their salary, their benefits, right? Their trading, their onboarding. And there's a lot that goes into this too, by the way. Like, there's workers' compensation, there's the unemployment insurance, there's, you know, it's a lot of responsibility to be an employer, especially an employer in multiple states like I am with, you know, a lot of a virtual workforce. So you really have to be intentional about hiring. And I would say you hire a little bit slower on the employee front because you really want to get it right because getting it wrong is extremely costly. It's costly nonetheless, but I think when you have an employee and you go through the trouble of, registering in their state for all of the tax withholdings and getting all the paperwork signed and getting the onboarding done and the ramp up period to get them trained on your methods. You also have to fill their time and you may have to coach them up into the role depending on what level you're hiring for. So you may have to show them more about how you do things here. And that can be really exhausting. I'm not going to lie. It's worth it. Doesn't mean it's not exhausting. So when you're thinking about employees versus contractors, it's not just a price game. Number one, I really think you should ask yourself this question. Which of these solutions would nearly guarantee the success of my client and my business? Which of these would better guarantee that? And there's no wrong answer. You just have to answer that truthfully. And you have to understand that whatever accomplishes that objective is probably worth the money if one is more expensive than the other. And, there is a big commitment involved with hiring employees, but the reward is also massive. And I honestly think that every business owner, if they plan to reach a certain level of success, if they plan to reach, mid six to low seven figures, even, you can't get to seven figures necessarily. You can't go get to a sustainable seven figures, I should say, annually without employees. And I think that you're never going to build a high value business without employees because if you have a business that is stitched together with contractors, 1099 employees or 1099 contractors, then what you're going to end up doing is you'll have to transfer those contracts over and those contracts may not transfer. Those people, those service providers may leave when you sell the business and then what's it worth, right? The buyer of your business wants to see a team that will remain loyal, remain intact, and be able to continue generating cash flow for them. So it can actually harm the value of your business if you're stitching together a team of contractors. And especially because the mission may be disjointed or the communication may be disjointed. Everybody may have their own communication preferences. But I think when you can embrace the idea of building a culture, embrace the idea of bringing people in and letting them in and investing in them, I think you'll see a massive return. This year, I'm excited to share we are hosting an in person retreat for our team. Now that everybody's basically on board as an employee, we're doing a team offsite. We're going to do speakers and meetings, and we're going to get together and we're going to meet clients in person, and it's going to be so much fun. But I feel like I couldn't do this to the extent that I want to if I had to coordinate with multiple contractors who had other priorities, who were serving other clients, and who weren't fully invested in, furthering this company and moving us forward. So I would seriously recommend that going back to my question, when it comes to the fulfillment of your offer, where could you hire in an employee who will be able to commit to you, be committed to you, committed to your clients, and be able to serve in the long term? I think it would benefit you greatly to invest in that person sooner rather than later.
We realize that CFO services may not necessarily be accessible to everybody. And that's why we have packaged our CFO services into a power session for you. With this single purchase session, you'll be able to navigate the financial scorecard with me personally on your business and figure out what constraint you need to unlock next. We're going to give you direction, clarity, and we're going to find ways to increase your profitability, increase your cash flow, and make sure you never run out of money. Okay, if you're interested in booking a power session with me, I only do a couple per month, so make sure you jump on quickly and sign up. Check the link in the show notes for more information. I can't wait to see you in a power session. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.